Very good. Greetings from Sarajevo, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and partners. It is both a pleasure and an honor to join you from Sarajevo online during this World Water Week, a space where practitioners, experts, policymakers are gathering and identifying solutions to both global and local challenges. Now, I think we all agree that we're living through a profound water crisis. The global water cycle is no longer in balance. Over 4 billion people face water insecurity for at least 1 month each year, while 2 million lack access to safe drinking water. And water stress is rising, driven by climate change, by ecosystem degradation, and unsustainable management practices. Now, this is not merely a crisis of infrastructure like we often hear. It is first and foremost, we believe, a crisis of governance, of foresight, and of relationship, our relationship with nature. We must recognize that nature is not a passive backdrop to water security. It is its very foundation. Healthy ecosystems regulate flows. They recharge aquifers and they buffer communities against floods and droughts. Yet these systems are clearly under pressure, and their degradation is accelerating the risks that we face. The solution, we believe, lies in nature based approaches that are not only technically sound, but economically viable and socially inclusive. These solutions must be scaled, institutionalized, and embedded in our water governance frameworks, not as peripheral projects, but as central pillars of our resilience. Now, let me take you to Bosnia and Herzegovina, a country where I have the privilege and pleasure of serving as the UNDP resident representative for just above a year. What we are witnessing here in the country is both the urgency of the situation, but also the opportunities that lies in front of us. The country faces increasing vulnerability to climate-induced floods, landslides, and water stress, compounded by fragmented governance and underinvestments in ecosystem resilience, mounting challenges in water security, shaped by climate variability and under-resourced infrastructure. Despite receiving annual precipitation which is above the European average, the country still grapples with uneven water distribution, rising flood risks, and pressure on groundwater reserves. If the National Hydrological Network includes more than 130 active stations, we still see gaps in data integration, and cross-sectoral coordination. But recent efforts are beginning to shift this paradigm. Nature-based solutions are being integrated progressively into national and local strategies, including through climate-resilient flood risk management programs and protection measures. These initiatives are helping restore degraded river basins, strengthen early warning systems, and build institutional capacity for adaptive water governance. But we must go forward. And this is why, together, UNDP with its partners, IFIs, the World Bank, EBRD, and EIB, with 3 bilateral donors, mainly the European Union, Switzerland, and the Czech Republic, have put together what we call here the Water Alliance. It is a coalition of like-minded development partners that have engaged at both local and national level to really change this paradigm, to influence policy, to guide the country in the reforms that we believe are required to make the water system and ecosystem more resilient. Now, this Water Alliance at policy level is backed by a program that provides technical assistance to more than 25 local governments across the country. That is called the MEG Project, the Municipal Economic Governance Project, and you will hear more about it right after my intervention. This flagship initiative, which is close to 30 million US dollars over several years, supports local governments and water utility companies in enhancing performance, accountability, and financial sustainability, while embedding social inclusion and climate resilience into everyday practice. By institutionalizing proven to work tools, MEG is helping translate strategic reform into tangible improvements for communities across the country. These efforts reflect a growing recognition that nature, data, and inclusive governance must converge to secure water for all. UNDP's on-the-ground implementation of the MEG project, of which you will get details very soon, exemplifies an integrated, adaptive approach to local governance and water service reform. By combining technical assistance, performance-based financing, and inclusive policy dialogue, MEG and the Water Alliance have strengthened the institutional capacity across these partner municipalities, their water utility companies, and scaling up those policy reforms that are needed at higher levels of government and administration. The project's success in operationalizing public service agreements, standardizing tariff methodologies, and embedding affordability and social protection measures demonstrates that a scalable model for service delivery that is both equitable and resilient is possible. This is the contribution that we wanted to make to the World Water Week through this session. You will hear not only from us, but also from the beneficiaries with testimonies on videos that we have collected among our local partners, which I think will speak much better than any one of us could do to share their experience, their lessons, and their hopes for a country that has a much stronger and more resilient water system. With this, I invite you to look at those videos and hear more details about MEG, and I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Renaud, dear colleagues, dear World Water Week Forum. Allow me also to extend the greatest gratitude for allowing us to speak on behalf of the project and present on what we have done in the past and what we think should be something that builds resilience in the country, primarily in the water supply systems in the country, but also, as Renaud rightfully mentioned, when it comes to performance-based advancements in the country. What we're going to talk about here today is a little bit about the project itself and how it does what it does in building and rebuilding the water utility resilience in Bosnia and Herzegovina with reference to our current ideas. Let me just give you briefly a short history on why we were there. We were there in 2015 as some sort of an intervention that should reflect on the issues that were in abundance in the country. One of them was the limited institutional capacity and coordination. We could see that due to countries' its constitutional setup, there's a lot of layers in the country that all deal with different aspects of water services and water and wastewater management. There's fragmented and weak regulatory frameworks because of its constitutional rights, because of its jurisdictions. Every level of the government, coming from the local level government all the way to national level, has a say or has a little bit of something to do with the entire process. There was low in operational and financial performance of water utility companies. When we started off in 2015, we noticed that a lot of them still operate in old way, in old fashion, still looking at the way the old system was operating, and a lot of them were really borderline close to declaring bankruptcy. There was a lack of reliable data and monitoring systems. No matter how much we try to generate as much data as we can and information from those water systems in order to make an informative decision, it was very hard to get any type of information from those water utility companies, from local governments, and from either of the national, subnational entity or any other level in the country in order to get reliable data and that's being measured through some monitoring systems. All that led to inequitable and unsustainable service delivery because there were a lot of issues that were leading to reasons why certain services were being inequitable or unsustainable. Water utility companies could not finance their own operations. All that led to a lot of issues in the water supply and management systems, and eventually it was the people who were suffering from that setup and from that system. This is where we basically came in, working together from 2015 with different institutions, with a lot of stakeholders that were involved in the processes, all dealing from water utility company associations, from associations of municipalities and cities, because they were in charge and as founders of water utility companies to manage those companies. And of course, the state, national level institutions who are actually there to provide and foster the better working environment. What we did after almost a decade of work with all of them is that we've introduced, in some cases for the first time, an inclusive policy dialogue and a technical support, which is a driver to the change in the sector. Somehow, all the change that was happening in the sector was very limited, was very kind of located on a micro level and was not replicated, was not able to show off all of those good and positive experiences and be able to take them up to other water utility companies that were not so developed. We've, together with the government, developed two entity-level programs for improvement of water services, and those were basically our action plans. Those were basically our reform programs. Those were the programs that were leading us in a way of trying to reform the sector with the people who are actually involved in the sector. We've done a regulatory impact assessment for the future legislative. This is something that was very required from all of us to consider what the new legislative would bring, how it would impact the existing legislation, and what would be the need for potentially new legislation that would come up as a result of all of our activities. We have also introduced a methodology for the first time, a nationally accepted or entity-wide accepted water tariff methodology, which is basically prescribing the way and the methodological approach to what needs to be included when a water utility company is setting up a water service, a price for its water services. It was endorsed by both entity governments. In the first case, the government of the Federation officially endorsed it, while in the case of Republika Srpska, it was officially recognized by the Association of Water Utilities and recommended for future use with all water utility companies in that entity. The first step in the implementation of the programs was the development of an initial legislative. The initial legislative was jointly recognized to be the need for developing water services laws. Laws on water services were not existent, and the existing laws would needed to be changed in a sense that they would basically be so large and could not officially and effectively address all the issues that were recognized in the sector. This is why, together with the ministries, with associations, with all the water utilities in the country, and with agencies for water services, we've organized the support to the ministry, who established the interdepartmental working groups, counting over 20 or 30 people, and who were tasked with a specific result on developing draft of a new legislative. In addition, as Renaud rightfully mentioned before me, this was all coordinated by the international the donor community and IFIs that were including the major players in the sector, the major financiers in the sector, who also put up a big wall between them and the government and stated that all future investments in the country, especially in the water sector, will be dependent on the progress that the country shows in a sense of implementing the reforms. The reforms were also agreed with the government, and it was just a sort of a carrot and a stick approach, because the government was in a sense used to not working that fast, or not working to meet all the requirements from the program unless there was a push from somebody who was working on the ground with it. Where we ended up, so through the project, again, in cooperation with the associations of water utilities, in cooperation with the ministries, in cooperation with the agencies for water utility companies, We've effectively worked on financial and operational performance improvement plans of water utility companies in the country in 17 implementation areas. Those would range from non-revenue water, from operationalization plans, from their staffing, from their financing plans, and it all led to tangible improvements that could be seen in the country, and that were, of course, used to inform all the necessary changes in the future legislative. 44 municipalities and their utilities were included in our operations from the beginning, from almost a decade of work. 1/4 of water utilities and local governments in the country were included in the project and had a positive, effective implementation of activities in their region, leading to improved water services on the ground to the people in need. What we've also introduced is something called tracking of key performance indicators. Like I said in my opening words, it was really tough to get any kind of information, either from water utility companies, local governments, any relevant agency or line ministries, to get a sense of monitoring or tracking the status in the country when it comes to water utilities operations. What we've introduced is a quarter submission of over 100 key performance indicators, targeting the better improvement, the improvements in the better water management and water services in the country that are being collected from all the water utilities that were included in the project. This has led us to make very informative decisions for the future. This has led us to make a notion and a recommendation that all water utilities in the country should start collecting key performance indicators, in a sense that they are provided to the higher level governments to make, again, informative decisions. This is why the next step in our process was to develop a countrywide benchmarking system, which is going to include all of these key performance indicators and allow for a better monitoring and a better analysis, and of course, eventually, better planning of the future of the sector itself. The system has been designed and endorsed by relevant institutions and is currently in development, and we hope to have it up and running by the end of this year. Something that also came up as a feedback from the field is that a lot of these water utility companies, like I said, still operate under the old premonitions, still operate in a way that they have been operating for the past 30, 40 years. And what we've seen is that a lot of young water professionals who are hired by those water utility companies do not get enough voice, do not get enough recognition, even though they bring a lot of new ideas and are really open to introducing some new procedures in order to improve the operations of their water utilities. This is why we supported over 50 young water professionals, and their work has been officially recognized by the water associations of both entities, and they have now been established as subcommittees in those associations and have started to really raise their voice and start to get recognized. Finally, where we are now is that we've collected all this information, all of this experience, and then slowly start sharing it through platforms for innovation, from peer learning. Water-to-water utility is something that we've learned that works the best if we want to transfer any positive knowledge. Of course, leading to professional development and best practices that are going to be a part of a future curricula of a water academy that is being established, a water services academy that is being established through the MEG project. Now, all of this is really nice, but like we said, if it doesn't lead to a result that is going to be recognized by the people on the ground, by the citizens themselves, then we have achieved nothing. This is why, as Renaud mentioned just before in his opening words, we have collected several statements from people who have been physically, personally affected in their everyday lives by the work of not only the project but also the local governments and water utilities. So the first story that I want to share with you is coming from a small city on the north of our country. It's called Shamac. And in the small place of Gajevi near Shamac, this right to water has finally become their reality. So after years of scarcity and uncertainty when it comes to expecting rains and expecting on what the tomorrow will bring, 146 households now have reliable access to safe drinking water from a reliable water source. It was done through construction of an 18-kilometer water supply system, which is now leading the safe water to their communities. This is also a global story, and it shows how communities, governments, and international partners can come together to advance the Sustainable Development Goals, to protect the public health, and to create resilient futures. This also leads and stands as a symbol of what World Water Week actually celebrates: the power of water to transform lives and strengthen communities. So please join me in watching the first video that we have prepared for you today.
Prije izgradnje ovog vodovoda koristili smo hidroforski sistem, znači sa dubine 7,5 metara. Međutim, u jesenjim mjesecima dolazi do nestanka i do krize vode. Tako da smo odlučili zajedno sa općinom Šamac da uradimo novi gradski vodovod. Sad nam je znači mnogo lakše, imamo sigurnu vodu, imamo obezbijeđene dovoljne količine u svakom momentu, u svakom godišnjem dobu.
Kao čovjek koji je ne samo načelnik, ne kao neko ko živi na području opštine Šamac čitav svoj život, imam veliku odgovornost za što veći procenat realizacije strateških projekata u okviru lokalnog ekonomskog razvoja koji smo predvidjeli narednih godina i u tom pogledu projekat MEG je u mnogome doprinio daljoj efikasnijem radu opštinske uprave i kvalitetu građana na području opštine Šamac.
Just before we move on to the next video, the second of 4 videos, let me just give you a short introduction what it talks about. It's a small village of Ljubotići down on the south of the country, which now has a totally different hydrological aspect than the one in the north. It's mostly karst region, and the water is more than scarce. So for them, water always meant uncertainty, and families relied on tanks and rainwater, never knowing again what tomorrow would bring. Today that has changed, and thanks to a new water supply system, the households have finally safe and reliable access to drinking water. So this is more for them than a convenience. This is health, it's dignity, and the reasons for their families not to reallocate, but to stay on that region and to continue cultivating the land. Ljubotići also now stands an example of what World Water Week additionally celebrates, which is the water that changes lives of people. So if we can move on to the second video, please.
Prije smo ovisili o cisternama kojima smo punili svoje čatrinje koje vode do hidrofona i preko koje smo zalijevali svoje voće i povrće i koristili za obiteljske potrebe. A sada imamo gradsku vodu koja tu radi, koju koristimo stalno, znači koja je puno nam olakšala naše poljoprivredne potrebe, rješava problem sa zalijevanjem, tako da više ne ovisimo znači o cisternama i više ne moramo zvati i provjeravati stalno imamo li vode ili ne u čatrini, dovoljno da obavimo sve što nam treba. I sada smo tako povećali malo i svoje rashode i količinu voća i povrća koje uzgajamo za svoje obiteljske potrebe.
Široki Brijeg i naše javno poduzeće Vodovod i kanalizacija već 2 godine su u sklopu projekta MEG. Projekat MEG ima za cilj da podigne kvalitetu vodnih usluga na području grada Širokog Brijega. Budući da smo mi dobro radili i surađivali s njima, nagrađeni smo i novčanim sredstvima u iznosu od $100.000 američkih dolara. Taj iznos uložili smo u proširenje vodnih kapaciteta u naselju Ljubotići, radili smo vodospremu i izgradnju glavnog cjevovoda. Mi i dalje nastavljamo raditi u projektu MEG da bi podigli kvalitetu vodnih usluga u gradu Širokom Brijegu na što višu uslugu.
Kroz ovaj projekt vodu će u Ljubotićima dobiti negdje oko između 80 i 100 domaćinstava. Samim time taj projekt će omogućiti ljudima da ostanu u ovoj sredini i da ne idu iz ovog kraja u daleki svijet. Tako da projekt sigurno ima pozitivne stvari i vjerujem kako će i u budućnosti koristiti svim žiteljima ovoga kraja.
Ovaj projekt je uvelike olakšao naš život, pogotovo znači u poljoprivredi, o kojoj, kao možete vidjeti, ovisimo i mi, a i mnogi naši susjedi. Znači, svi imamo nešto svoje, svi imamo svoje voće, svoje povrće koje uzgajamo i sada sa ovim projektom znači, možemo uzgajati puno više i puno kvalitetnije voće i povrće za svoje obitelji.
When it comes to the third video, it is going to be in a larger city of Prnjavor, which is now facing a totally different issue than the previous videos that you've seen. So more than 65% of households are connected to the water supply network in the city of Prnjavor. However, in recent years, the climate change has brought new challenges because they, in the city of Prnjavor, were facing with dry seasons and a growing demand of an increasing population. The city and Vodovod have searched for new water resources and had to invest in major reconstruction of the network to reduce leaks and losses, which were at the time huge. This is more than just maintenance. It is an adaptation. It stands for resilience and a commitment for future generations. So the Prnjavor can be seen as an example of what World Water Week highlights: the urgency to protect water, to strengthen systems and ensure that every single drop of water counts.
Pružanje vodnih usluga nije samo usluga, nego da je više od toga. Voda je temelj razvoja jedne lokalne zajednice i toga svi moramo biti svjesni. Od svakog građanina do nas koji upravljamo sistemom. Ono što je također posebno važno jeste da su klimatske promjene postale stvarnost, da su klimatske promjene postale svakodnevnica i da sve svoje i tekuće, ali i dugoročne aktivnosti moramo prilagoditi novim uslovima, odnosno klimatskim promjenama. Ono što je također veoma značajno jeste da smo mi kroz MEG projekat mnogo naučili, da nam MEG projekat nije dao konkretna rješenja, ali da nam je ponudio određena iskustva koja su mi u našoj situaciji primijenili i u tom kontekstu naučili se da bolje planiramo, da bolje upravljamo i da bolje reagujemo na sve izazove.
Pristup javnom vodosnabdjevanju ima oko 65% građana grada Prnjavora ili nekih 25.000, što možemo reći da nije baš zadovoljavajuća pokrivenost, jer u zadnje vrijeme zbog ovih klimatskih promjena i pada nivoa vode u nekim lokalnim izvorima vodosnabdjevanja sve više je zahtjeva za proširenje vodovodne mreže i da bude trajna i kontinuirana dostupnost vodi kroz sistem javnog vodosnabdjevanja. A zajedno sa lokalnom zajednicom i kroz grant sredstva od UNDP-a, kroz MEG projekat, rekonstruisali smo najznačajnije ulice gdje smo utvrdili da imamo velike gubitke.
MEG projekat nam je omogućio da osnažimo kapacitete lokalne samouprave i komunalnog vodnog preduzeća kako bi pravovremeno odgovorili na sve klimatske izazove. Kada nema vode, život staje. Voda je osnovni primarni resurs. Bez vode nema napretka niti razvoja u lokalnoj zajednici.
Thank you. And the last video is something that we are probably all scared of happening. One of the municipalities close to the capital of Sarajevo is called Ilijaš. It faced water crisis. Its only water source, the river of Misoča, ran dry during the last summer, leaving the community without safe and reliable water supply. But instead of standing still, the municipality and their water utility company took action. They reduced losses in the water supply network. They protected households. They saved their existing resources from depletion and built resilience for the future, something that was almost completely overlooked before. And this was more than just a technical fix in the system. This is something that speaks about responsibility, adaptation, and hope for future generations. And this is why we feel that Ilijaš shows us what World Water Week celebrates. The safeguarding of water today means securing life for people tomorrow.
Rijeka Misoča je za općinu Ilijaš izvor života. Dakle, mi drugog resursa od vodosnadbijevanja nemamo. Dakle, ona je jedini vodni resurs sa kojih se vodosnadbijeva naše stanovništvo na centralnom gradskom vodovodu. Svaki građanin na našoj općini ima dostupnost pitke vode i odvodnje. Pored tog cilja želimo da zaštitimo naša izvorišta od svih vrsta zagađenja, da zaštitimo i da unaprijedimo suradnju sa našim korisnicima koji su naši partneri u cijelom ovom procesu. Naravno, ne možemo zanemariti i značajnu podršku i pomoć međunarodnih organizacija koju smo imali u projektu MEG, kojim smo zajedno sa općinom učestvovali.
Smanjenje gubitaka prioritet broj 1. U proteklih 10 godina imali smo sistemsko smanjenje gubitaka kroz bolje praćenje, detekciju i sanaciju kvarova te proaktivno održavanje. Danas imamo redovno vodosnadbijevanje uprkos i dalje prisutnim klimatskim promjenama, a to smo postigli sistemskim ulaganjem na otpornost naše infrastrukture i zadužili smo općinu Ilijaš kao osnivača našeg preduzeća da proba pronaći alternativna izvorišta na području naše općine Ilijaš kako bismo dugoročno riješili problem vodosnadbijevanja naših građana u općini Ilijaš.
Pouzdano i stabilno snadbijevanje vodom znači mnogo. Potreba je svakog domaćinstva. Kada znamo da imamo siguran pristup vodi, odmah je realizacija svakodnevnih obaveza brža i lakša, bez stresa i improvizacije.
Općina Ilijaš, kao mala sredina, mala općina, mala zajednica, mal grad, može biti primjer dosta većim sredinama, dosta većim gradovima, da uz jasan cilj, jasnu viziju može ostvariti velike korake kao održivosti u upravljanju vodama na području jedne općine.
So, looking back to what we've heard and we've seen from the people on the ground what water means to them. It is now very important to know how they've felt without water. It's much more important for us to know how we can provide water for them for future. And this is why we feel that whatever we do in the future has to be communicated, has to be agreed with people who are mostly benefiting from it, primarily the citizens. This is another reason why in all of our work as a project, as UNDP in the country, we are trying to include as many stakeholders as possible in the process of developing new legislation, in the process of coming up with joint solutions to a common problem, like we've seen in those four videos. They all range from northern part of the country to south part of the country, and they all have, though different, but the same problems. One, because the water scarcity is increasingly present in all municipalities. Two, because dependency on weather conditions is slowly becoming a thing of the relic, thing of the past. And something that we all need to come jointly together with is a common solution to our everyday problems. And this is why also we feel that the people who we work with have the best problems to their have the best issues to their problems. I'm sorry, and this is why we feel that for the next part of our presentation, we would like to share how they feel, what needs to be done next, what are the key messages for us to consider, for us to take into our future work, and for us to know how to address something that is deeply concerning the people living in this country, and I believe all over the world. So if you will join me again for one last video, which is basically comprising all the key messages that we've gathered from the people that we work with, and trying to see on how we can work with them on resolving those issues. So please.
Široki brijeg i naše javno poduzeće Vodovod i kanalizacija već 2 godine su u sklopu projekta MEG. Projekat MEG ima za cilj da podigne kvalitetu vodnih usluga na području grada Širokog brijega.
Kao čovjek koji je ne samo načelnik, ne kao neko ko živi na području opštine Šamac čitav svoj život, imam veliku odgovornost za što veći procenat realizacije strateških projekata u okviru lokalnog ekonomskog razvoja koji smo predvidjeli narednih godina i u tom pogledu projekat MEG je u mnogome doprinio daljoj efikasnijem radu opštinske uprave i kvalitetu građana na području opštine Šamac.
Prošle godine smo zbog klimatskih promjena i dugotrajne suše suočili sa novim izazovom kada je rijeka Misoča u pitanju. Dakle, ona je bila gotovo presušila i to nas je potaklo na to da se ubrzano mora potražiti novo alternativno izvorište rijeci Misoči.
Tokom redukcije vode u Ilijašu naučili smo da cijenimo svaku kap. Ustajali smo rano ujutru da napunimo određene posude vodom i planirali smo dan na osnovu termina dolaska vode. Bilo je teško, ali smo još jednom pokazali solidarnost kako u porodici, tako i među komšijama. Danas, zahvaljujući naporima lokalnog vodovoda, stanje je dovedeno u normalu i mi opet imamo situaciju da je ista kao i prije 10-ak godina. Pouzdano i stabilno snabdijevanje vodom znači mnogo. Potreba je svakog domaćinstva. Kada znamo da imamo siguran pristup vodi, odmah je realizacija svakodnevnih obaveza brža i lakša, bez stresa i improvizacije.
S tim u vezi pokrenuta su i nova istraživanja kako bi se istražila mogućnost uvođenja rijeke Rače, Povoće, Ljubine i Peračkog vrela u sistem vodosnabdijevanja kako bi se prevazišao i ovaj promjen koji nam dolazi sa klimatskim promjenama i koji predstavlja novu realnost. Ono što su naši planovi u budućnosti zajedno sa općinom Ilijaš je da širimo pokrivenost vodovodne mreže na teritoriju naše općine, koja je i sad na zadovoljavajućem nivou, obzirom da 96% građana naše općine ima vodu iz javnog vodosnadbijevanja, dakle vodu koja je pod zdravstvenom kontrolom i ispravnošću vodovoda. Međutim, cilj nam je da svaki građan na našoj općini ima dostupnost pitke vode i odvodnje. Pored tog cilja želimo da zaštitimo naša izvorišta od svih vrsta zagađenja, da zaštitimo i da unaprijedimo suradnju sa našim korisnicima koji su naši partneri u cijelom ovom procesu, da sačuvamo našu infrastrukturu i da je unaprijedimo uvođenjem i novih savremenih tehnologija koje su sve više prisutne na našim tržištu, kao što je digitalizacija, automatizacija procesa u vodovodu, a koji na neki način poboljšavaju efikasno upravljanje vodnim uslugama.
Klimatske promjene su postali danas surava realnost. Rijeka Misoča kao naš jedini izvor vodosnabdijevanja bila je podložna velikim sušama u protekloj godini, kada je dotok vode sa 60 litara sekundnih spao na 35 litara sekundnih. U tim trenucima mi smo se borili svim silama da naš sistem učinimo održivim i da naši korisnici imaju redovno vodosnabdijevanje. Međutim, bili smo prisiljeni uvesti redukcije koje su trajale po nekoliko sati dnevno. Bili smo primorani imati dodatno vodosnabdijevanje u području općine Vogošća, te smo imali pojačan nadzor nad samim sistemom i podizali svijest naših korisnika o racionalnoj potrošnji vode. Kada su u pitanju velike padavine, odnosno bujice, tada naša ekipa sa filterskog postrojenja Karašnica ima pojačan nadzor nad samom rijekom, provjeravamo mutnoću nekoliko puta dnevno, te ostale fizičko-hemijske i mikrobiološke parametre. Danas imamo redovno vodosnabdijevanje uprkos i dalje prisutnim klimatskim promjenama, a to smo postigli sistemskim ulaganjem na otpornost naše infrastrukture i zadužili smo općinu Ilijaš kao osnivača našeg preduzeća da proba pronaći alternativna izvorišta na području naše općine Ilijaš kako bismo dugoročno riješili problem vodosnabdijevanja naših građana u općini Ilijaš.
I naravno ne možemo zanemariti i značajnu podršku i pomoć međunarodnih organizacija koju smo imali u projektu MEG, kojim smo zajedno sa općinom učestvovali, koju provodi UNDP uz pomoć međunarodnih partnera, jer smo kroz taj projekat dobili raznu vrstu pomoći, stručnu, konsultantsku. Dakle, uspjeli smo jačati svoje vlastite kapacitete za uspješno upravljanje vodovodnim sistemom s jedne strane i s druge strane ta pomoć značajna je i za Bosnu i Hercegovinu, obzirom da oni učestvuju u reformskim procesima koji se tiču institucionalnog, pravnog, regulacionog okvira, što je vrlo značajno za ovaj segment adekvatnog pružanja vodnih usluga. Evo, ovim putem se izražavam zahvalnost i želim da se ta pomoć i u budućnosti intenzivira i nastavi.
Općina Ilijaš, kao mala sredina, mala općina, mala zajednica, mal grad, može biti primjer dosta većim sredinama, dosta većim zajednicama, dosta većim gradovima, da uz jasan cilj, jasnu viziju može ostvariti velike korake kao održivosti u upravljanju vodama na području jedne općine.
Kada nema vode, život staje. Voda je osnovni primarni resurs. Bez vode nema napretka niti razvoja u lokalnoj zajednici. MEG projekat nam je omogućio da osnažimo kapacitete lokalne samouprave i komunalnog vodnog preduzeća kako bi pravovremeno odgovorili na sve klimatske izazove.
Voda je jedan od najznačajnijih resursa. Kada dolazi do problema u vodosnabdjevanju, tada staje sve. Iz našeg iskustva možemo reći da možda jedan od ključnih problema u svemu tome jeste svijest građana koji nikako da shvate da se vodom ne možemo više rasipati. Jer ona je pokretačka snaga i razvoja svakog grada, svake opštine, a Prnjavor je sredina koja se brzo razvija, koja se širi, gdje svaki dan dolaze, otvaraju se firme, prave se nove stambene zgrade, ali ako budemo došli u probleme sa količinama vode, sve će to da se uspori, sve će to da stane.
Ono što svakako treba da bude najvažniji zaključak jeste da svi shvatimo da voda nije neograničen resurs, da je voda prije svega resurs koji je izvor razvoja, izvor stabilnosti, da to nije više samo pružanje vodnih usluga, nije samo usluga, nego da je više od toga. Voda je temelj razvoja jedne lokalne zajednice i toga svi moramo biti svjesni. Od svakog građanina do nas koji upravljamo sistemom. Ono što je također posebno važno jeste da su klimatske promjene postale stvarnost, da su klimatske promjene postale svakodnevnica i da sve svoje i tekuće, ali i dugoročne aktivnosti moramo prilagoditi novim uslovima, odnosno klimatskim promjenama. Ono što je također veoma značajno jeste da smo mi kroz MEG projekat mnogo naučili, da nam MEG projekat nije dao konkretna rješenja, ali da nam je ponudio određena iskustva koja su mi u našoj situaciji primijenili i u tom kontekstu naučili se da bolje planiramo, da bolje upravljamo i da bolje reagujemo na sve izazove. Također, jedna od važnijih zaključaka cijelog ovog procesa jeste i da je veoma važna međunarodna i regionalna saradnja, da lekcije koje su drugi naučili su svakako koristile Prnjavoru, ali isto tako i neke naše priče iz Prnjavora mogu biti globalne lekcije. Svakako da iskustva koja mi imamo želimo podijeliti sa drugima jer smo tako i mi učili, ali još jedna važna lekcija koju smo mi sami naučili jeste da je jedna od najvažnijih stvari komunikacija svih ovih stvari sa građanima. Ukoliko građani nemaju povjerenje u sve ono što radite, ukoliko nemaju sve transparentne i blagovremene informacije, svakako da neće prihvatiti politike koje provodite, a ukoliko oni imaju informacije, ukoliko sav ovaj proces transparentno i odgovorno vodite, onda nema problem da to i od strane građana bude prihvaćeno.
Thank you. Those would be the key messages from the people on the ground, from the people, like I said, who have been on this ride with us for the past almost a decade, and who have personally seen how things can change. And if you maybe notice the last words in this video from the mayor, it says that everything you do needs to be transparently communicated to the citizens, because unless they know what you are trying to do, they will not be able to partake, they will not be able to contribute. The main reason is, as also was one of the notes in the presentation, to know that water is no longer an abundant resource. We've seen and we've heard that Bosnia is actually a country that has a lot of water. But if we treat it like that, if we treat it without any respect, it will definitely go away. It may not be the same case for the municipalities throughout the country, but in a lot of these places in the country, especially in Bosnia and Herzegovina, especially in the south, the scarcity of water is becoming more and more issue that is leading the families out of their homes, out of their countries, and something that is basically driving the negative flow of the people in the country. So something that we all have to do is come together with joint solutions. Something that was kind of a note throughout all of these videos and all of this session is by working together, by recognizing the common problems, investing in the future, realizing and understanding that we are not there to only work with something that we have for ourselves, but something that we need to plan for the future generations, for our own children, for their children, is something that if we work all together can come up with a common solution to the ever-rising issue. We believe also that issues, again, because the global climate is not, global change and global climate is not micro-located to a specific area in the globe. It's something that can be taken as lessons learned, as a positive result of the work and shared globally. We know that there are countries in the world that are in much worse situation than the Bosnia and Herzegovina is. But I believe that if we share our experiences, if we are able to kind of voice out the positive changes that we have seen happening in the country, they can be easily translated to some other regions in the country and improved and lead to improvement of lives of people living in those areas. Like we said, it's not just the project. It's not something that we feel as UNDP needs to be done. It's actually a global movement. It's actually something that after recognizing the problem, after recognizing that there is an issue, you need to include everybody who is not only deeply involved in it, but also everybody who has felt the negative aspects of global warming, of climate changes. And working together with the people, with the local communities, and going through all the levels of government to try to, for them to understand that the change needs to happen at all levels of the country, but it needs to be driven as a strategic approach from higher government levels. We can only work so much on the local level, but unless, and this is something that we've seen in Bosnia and Herzegovina, unless there's an understanding that those issues are not micro-located in specific areas of the country, but they really touch upon all the people living in the country, then the change can happen. Reform is not an easy or pain-free process, but it needs to start. If we had started the reform 20 years ago, we'd be speaking a totally different language today, and we would be tackling different issues now. But in addition to the global climate change, we are also tackling with an obsolete regulatory framework in the country. We're also dealing with less ability of water utility companies to provide water services to the people, to the residents. And we're also dealing with less financial capabilities and possibilities to invest in the existing infrastructure, which we have seen needs a lot of work, needs a lot of care, but also need a lot of investment for future generations. It's not only maintaining what we have built 50, 60, in some cases even 100 years ago, it's basically thinking 100 years ahead of us and trying to resolve the problems that might happen in the future, but also looking to those that we can deal with today. So maybe unless there's, from what I've seen, 60-something people on the session, unless there's a question from the audience, which I see none. I think we can wrap this up and thank to Swedish International Water Institute, thank to the government of Sweden as well, because they're also one of the financiers of the MEG project, and thank to everybody who have joined us today to hear the positive stories, to hear to what we have been doing for the past 10 years, and to also see what we need to be doing in the future if we want to save the environment, not only for us, but also for future generations. And I'm also speaking to everybody here in the country to try to understand that those issues will eventually catch up with us. They will not be forgotten. And something that I keep telling to almost everybody that I meet with, we want to get over the fact that we talk about water in only two instances, when there's no water or when there's too much of water. So we really need to start thinking about how we can work in the middle to use the water sources that we have, but also not to abuse them and to leave nothing for the future generations. So I would thank you again. Thanks to Sivi, thanks to the government of Sweden for supporting the MEG project and this event. And we would really like to come back to you in about 3 or 4 years when we have completed the third phase of the project, which is eventually going to be looking forward to the Agenda 2030, and we would have much more positive news and positive feedback from the ground to reflect on. So thanks again, and looking forward to seeing you all. Thank you.